Hello people of YouTube, my name is Brad. This is my channel Adamant Orange, and this week in 3D metal model news. Doing my usual research and looking at the usual sites that I visit to try and gather information about what's going on this week, really didn't see anything new. Fascination's website looks the same as it did last week at this time. Nothing new and they're coming soon or what's new. P-School's website looks the same as it has for 2 or 3 weeks now, if not longer. I looked around on AliExpress and all of my favorite stores. I didn't see any new models showing up, anything that I haven't already talked about. So it was a bit of a dig and a search to try and find anything new this week. One of the things that I did do is I took to eBay and did a search for Disney Metal Earth, because the Disney exclusive Metal Earth models, it's difficult to find out any information about them. They do not advertise them, they do not announce them, they just kind of show up in stores, and I basically wait for somebody to find them and say, hey, look what I found. And I spread the news through this weekly news video thing. Looking around, there were a couple of interesting things I may have already talked about. There was a Stitch hat, it's like a Mickey Mouse hat, but it's a Stitch hat. And I've talked briefly sometime back that they were doing some of the Mickey Mouse type hats. I think I probably mentioned the Stitch hat, but I didn't pay much attention to it. The Stitch hat looks like it has both Mickey Mouse ears and Stitch ears. I don't know if that's just an image overlay and I'm just misunderstanding it, or if that's actually how it comes. I didn't look to see the actual instructions for it, but I thought that was pretty interesting. There's also a Main Street Station model that's available now. At least you can find it on eBay. I think I may have touched on that sometime back, but I saw it on eBay and thought I would just bring it back up again. That's one of the newer models. They pretty much at this point they've got a lot of the different buildings and castles at different amusement parks across the country have models. They have character models, they have hat models, they have trash can models, and some of the older models that they've had for a while, like the castles, are now coming out in different colors and different versions. So there's a lot out there if you can go find even the Amp suit and the other Pandora stuff, and you've got the Raiders of the Lost Ark, Golden Ark. It's all still out there, and a lot of this stuff is, as time goes on, it's more easily available on places like eBay. I also turned to the Metal Earth subreddit to look for some information, and I did something I haven't done in far too long. Metal Earth subreddit has a list, like a wiki, or a list of models and instructions and 3D or 360 views. They've always had a list, and they've had Metal Earth, and they've had Iconics, and they've had some P-School and Tenyo models, and they've recently, well, I don't know how recently, but since last I checked, they've expanded and added a lot of new information. So thank you to the people who manage the Metal Earth subreddit for compiling such a wonderful resource of information, instructions, and pictures. There is something on there that I had maybe seen blips about before, but hadn't paid that much attention to. There is a series of models called Datang, D-A-T-A-N-G, and I'd seen, like, there's a tricycle vehicle type thing that I had seen somebody post before, but I really didn't bring it up, and I didn't look more into it. And today I've got the time to do that. Something that I used to do when I first did these news videos is I would go into some of the different models. It's been a while since I've done that, so let's do it today. And what little bit I've been able to research, mostly through the Metal Earth subreddit, the Datang models are another model manufacturer from China. They don't seem to be doing a lot of imitation or copycat models like some of the other manufacturers that I mentioned in a very recent video. They seem to be doing a lot of unique models, and I don't know who is behind making them. I do know that Metal Earth subreddit has a list of instructions, and the ones that they have listed, and on those instructions, at least some of them, they have Crazy Toys logo on there. So I don't know if this is something that's done through Crazy Toys, if the person or people who are responsible for the models is through Crazy Toys, or if they're just throwing that on there and making the instructions available online, which is possible because Crazy Toys is a very helpful company to get models from, and they do a lot more than others, at least internationally, to try and help their customers get the best experience from what I've seen. I did look on Crazy Toys website, and on their website, crazytoys.co.uk, you can do a search for Datang, and it brings up something like 14 models. And just to go through that list somewhat quickly, and these are English names, so they may not make the most sense. We have the Mirage Building Architecture, the WXL Spaceship, the WXL Special Vehicle. We have the Bat Starship, the Fighter Jet, Earn to Die, not sure what that's about, looks like some sort of armored vehicle. We have the Ghost Iron Ride motorcycle, which looks like maybe it's Ghost Rider's motorcycle. Scorpion Starship. And Sazu Traditional Gardens. I'm sure I didn't say that correctly. Tricycle Vehicle. Fine Horse. Lantern. Then the last two we have a rickshaw and a double horse royal carriage. Now some of these models are listed in the Metal Earth subreddit with instructions, some of them aren't. I did a little bit of looking around beyond that. In the Metal Earth subreddit there was one conversation about an interesting model that I had missed. I think it was back before I started doing these news videos, and it led to a website, Taibo, which I've not dealt with, but I guess some of the people on the Metal Earth subreddit have dealt with, and it's a way to get some of the more obscure models. And it's a listing for a bunch of Detang models, and one of them is the Vengeance class, Venator class cruiser from Star Wars, which I believe was at the very end of the episode 3 and in a lot of the Clone Wars episodes. It's kind of the predecessor to the Death Star. It's Star Wars, so it caught my attention, but they have a lot of different possible models. You won't really find Detang by searching for them on places like AliExpress or eBay. You're more likely to find them in the generic or other sections, and they don't really advertise the name. It's just kind of like the same with places like Peace Fund or HK. They don't always say the name, they just advertise the model. And according to some of the things I read on the Metal Earth subreddit, the instructions can be a little unclear and difficult. Some of the models can be a little difficult. There were some talks of people having to maybe do things differently or getting confused or having to make modifications, but it does appear that as time goes on, some of the later models may have improved, but I don't have any experience building them myself. And this week's question of the week comes from Jack Ripper. Hi, I was just wondering, where do you get those black tweezers from and most of your other tools? Thank you, you are amazing with those builds. It's a very general question, well specific on one tool, but generally speaking, where do I get the tools? The black tools, the tweezers that I use, they're Pixnor precision tweezers. I got them from Amazon. It's like a set of 7. I only use 3 out of that set, two pointed ones and then the flat kind of rounded tip ones. One of the pointed ones I ground the tip down just a little bit to make it flatter. It's great for grabbing tabs. I have a little grinding wheel at my house. The other tweezers I think I ended up giving away, and I give away some time back. But the Pixnor tweezers, and I do suggest Pixnor because there are other brands out there that look the same, that they're not as good quality. The Pixnor is a little bit stiffer. I mean, they do flex some, but they're a little stiffer than some of the others that I've dealt with. As far as the other tools in general, I get a lot of my tools through like local hobby shops in the jewelry section. Some of the tools that I use I've actually designed and 3D printed myself. I have an Etsy store that sells some of them, and I'm working on getting some more up. And also, as occasion, I will release the STL files. If you have access to a 3D printer, you can print them yourself. So pay attention to the videos that I put out. My Etsy store, there's a link in the description down below. And to my different social media, when things do progress, because I do have a lot of things going on, I will post updates about those tools as well. I do have some older tool videos that I've made. It's been a while since I've made one, so perhaps it's about time for an update, but not that much has changed from what I use, except for the 3D printed tools, and the exception that I do go through a lot of clippers. They just tend to wear out and break on me, and I got tired of recording or making an update every time I replaced it with another set of tweezers, because I use them so much, I guess they just don't last long. And that's it for this week in 3D Metal Model News. I do want to thank my Patreon supporters for supporting this channel financially so that I can continue to make these videos, these build videos, review videos, and news videos. If you enjoy these videos, consider becoming a Patreon supporter. There's a link in the description down below and here at the end of this video in just a second. As always, thank you for watching, and keep on keeping on.